Hey everyone, close your eyes, or keep them half open if you're staring at the ceiling. Dim the lights, pull the blankets up to that perfect height, and let's just drift. Tonight, we aren't looking at the great battles or the golden masks. We're going to spend about 90 minutes wandering through the lives of people who were, quite frankly, a bit of a mess, even if they did live in palaces. We are heading back to a time where the world moved at the speed of a river, and where being divine usually just meant you were slightly more susceptible to a very expensive headache. Let's start in Egypt. Not the Hollywood Egypt with the constant chariot chases, but the real one, the quiet one. Imagine the Middle Kingdom, around 4,000 years ago. The air is thick, warm, and smells faintly of wet clay and papyrus. We're going to follow a man named Nakht. Nakht isn't a hero. He isn't a villain. He's a farmer, and his entire life is dictated by a river that has a mind of its own. Right now, it's the season of Akhet, the inundation. This is the time of year when the Nile decides to stop being a river and starts being a very slow, very brown lake. For Nakht, this is actually the most relaxing time of the year, mostly because his fields are currently 3 feet underwater. There is absolutely nothing he can do about it. He can't plow, he can't sow. He just has to sit on his roof or a nearby hill and watch the silt settle. Imagine the sound of that water. It isn't a rushing torrent. It's a low, rhythmic lapping against the mud brick walls of his house. Every year, the river brings down this black, gooey silt from the highlands. It's the lifeblood of the country, but to Nakht, it's just more mud he'll have to scrape off his sandals later. He spends his days doing the ancient equivalent of scrolling through his phone, which in 1900 BCE means staring at a dragonfly, or perhaps whittling a piece of acacia wood into a slightly better spoon. Because, you see, in the ancient world, boredom was a professional sport. Nakht's house is a modest affair. It's made of sun-dried mud bricks, which are surprisingly good at keeping the heat out, though they do have a tendency to smell like a damp basement when the humidity hits 90%. He sits on a woven reed mat, listening to his wife, Merit, spin flax. The sound of the spindle is a constant whir, tap, whir, tap. It's a hypnotic sound. It's the background noise of the Bronze Age. They talk about the neighbors. They talk about the tax collector, which is inevitably going to show up once the water recedes to measure the silt and decide how much grain they owe the pharaoh. The pharaoh, of course, lives in a palace miles away and is currently being fanned by 3 servants because he found the morning sun a bit much. The pharaoh in question is Senusret. Now, Senusret is technically a god on earth, but at the moment he's mostly a god of indigestion. He's sitting on a throne made of ebony and gold, wearing a linen kilt so finely pleated it probably took someone 3 days to iron it with a hot stone. He is listening to a priest explain the stars, but Senusret is actually thinking about his feet. His sandals are a bit tight. He's considering executing the sandalmaker, but then remembers that the sandalmaker is the only one who knows how to work with that specific leather, so he just sighs. It's a heavy, royal sigh. The palace is full of these quiet, high-stakes mundanities. There are dozens of overseers of the wardrobe and keepers of the king's fingernails. Imagine that being your career path. You go to school for 10 years to learn how to read and write complex hieroglyphs, only to end up being the guy who makes sure the king's pinky nail is the correct shade of buffed. Naturally, the royal court is a nest of passive aggression, because everyone is related, often a bit too closely, as was the fashion. The drama is localized and petty. Princess Idikite is currently annoyed because her sister was given a larger jar of perfumed goose fat. She expresses this by refusing to speak during the evening meal, which consists of roasted duck, figs, and bread that is about 10% sand. That's the thing about Egyptian bread. No matter how royal you were, the flour was ground on stone querns, which meant everyone's teeth were slowly being sanded down by quartz dust. You could be the ruler of the 2 lands, but by the time you were 30, you'd have the molars of a 60-year-old donkey. It's a great equalizer, really. Back at Nakht's house, the sun is beginning to set. The sky is a deep, bruised purple, reflecting off the still water of the flooded fields. Nakht eats a bowl of lentil stew. It's simple, warm, and filling, He doesn't have to worry about the keeper of the fingernails or the price of lapis lazuli. He just has to worry about whether the water will stay long enough to soak the ground, but not so long that his house melts. He lies down on a wooden headrest. If you've never seen an ancient Egyptian headrest, it looks like a small, curved stool for your neck. It looks incredibly uncomfortable to us, but to Noct it's perfect because it allows the air to circulate under his head. He listens to the frogs, millions of frogs, all croaking in unison across the flooded valley. It's a thick, heavy blanket of sound. It drowns out the worries of the taxman. It drowns out the distant construction of the king's eternal house, a pyramid that is currently just a very large, dusty pile of limestone blocks a few miles away. Thousands of men are there, dragging stones, but right now, they've all stopped. They're sleeping in their barracks, smelling of sweat and beer. Beer in Egypt wasn't the crisp lager we know. It was more like a thick, fermented porridge that you had to drink through a straw to avoid the chunks. It was nutritious, though. It kept you going. Everyone was just a little bit buzzed all the time. It helped with the heat. It helped with the sand. It helped with the fact that you were spent 12 hours a day moving rocks to build a mountain for a man who was currently complaining about his sandals. Let's leave Noct to his frogs and his wooden pillow. Let's let the Nile Silt settle into the cracks of the earth, turning the valley into a dark, fertile garden while the world sleeps. We are going to move forward now. We're drifting away from the heat of the desert and towards something a bit cooler, a bit darker, and significantly more damp. We are moving through time now, the centuries blurring like the pages of a book being flipped by a cold wind. The heat of the Nile is gone. Now we feel a damp chill. We are in Ireland around the year 800 CE. It is deep winter. If you listen closely, you can hear the Atlantic Ocean crashing against the cliffs in the distance, a low, rhythmic boom that sounds like the earth's heartbeat. We are inside a stone cell in a monastery. This is the Scriptorium. It is not a grand library. It's a small, cramped room with a single window that lets in a gray, discouraging light. Our friend here is Kalman. Kalman is a monk, and he has one job. He copies books. Tonight, he is working by the light of a single beeswax candle. The candle is expensive, so he has to work quickly, but not so quickly that he makes a mistake. If he messes up a word of the gospel, he can't just hit backspace. He has to carefully scrape the parchment with a sharp knife, lifting the ink off the animal skin without tearing a hole in it. It's a high-wire act of extreme boredom. The parchment itself is interesting. It's not paper, it's vellum, calfskin. To make this one book, dozens of calves had to be, well, let's just say they made the ultimate sacrifice for literacy. Kalman can still feel the texture of the skin. It's smooth on one side, slightly fuzzy on the other. It reacts to the weather. On damp nights like this, the parchment actually starts to curl and ripple, as if the ghost of the calf is trying to walk away. Kalman's fingers are perpetually stained blue and black. The blue comes from lapis lazuli, which has traveled all the way from Afghanistan, a place Kalman couldn't find on a map if his life depended on it, just so he can paint the robe of a saint. The black is oak gall ink. It's made from the growths on oak trees caused by wasps. It's acidic. It literally bites into the page. The room is silent except for the scratch of the quill. Kalman is tired. His back aches from leaning over the slanted desk. His eyes hurt. He starts to do what all monks did. He starts doodling in the margins. He draws a tiny, crumpy-looking cat chasing a mouse. He writes a little note to himself in the corner. The light is bad. The parchment is hairy. I am cold. These marginal notes are some of the best parts of history. We find them all over medieval manuscripts. They are the tweets of the 9th century. One monk wrote, "Thank God, it will soon be dark." Another wrote, "The ink is thin." It's a reminder that while they were preserving the foundations of Western civilization, they were mostly just annoyed that their hands were cramping. Outside, the other monks are chanting. The sound drifts through the stone corridors, a low Gregorian hum that vibrates in the chest. It's a wall of sound designed to keep the mind focused, but Kalman's mind is wandering. He's thinking about the kitchen. He's thinking about the bread they'll have tomorrow, a heavy rye loaf with a bit of salted butter if they're whiskey. He finishes a capital letter. He spent 3 hours on this one letter B. He has filled it with intricate knots and tiny interlacing serpents that bite their own tails. It's beautiful, it's unnecessary, and it's a perfect distraction from the fact that he hasn't spoken to another human being in 14 hours. The candle flickers. A draft has come in through the door. Kalman shivers. His robes are made of heavy, undyed wool. They are itchy and smell vaguely of wet sheep, but they are warm. He pulls his hood up. There's a certain peace in this, isn't there? The world outside is chaotic. This is the age of the Vikings. At any moment, a long ship could appear in the bay, and the monks would have to grab their books and run for the round towers. But for now, in this moment, there is only the quill, the ink, and the steady, flickering flame. The Vikings, by the way, get a lot of press for being raiders, but most of them were just like Noct, farmers who were tired of their rocky soil in Norway and wanted somewhere with better grass. But when they did show up at a monastery, they were usually quite confused by the monks. They didn't see the value in a book.
You couldn't eat a book. You couldn't make a sword out of a book. To a Viking, a scriptorium was just a room full of very thin, very expensive leather that had been ruined by someone drawing tiny crosses on it. Kalman blows out his candle. The smell of the smoke, sweet, heavy, and waxy, fills the small room. He navigates his way to his cell by memory, his hand brushing against the cold, damp stone walls. He lies down on a straw pallet. It's not soft, but his body is so used to it that he's asleep before he can even finish his final prayer. The rain begins to patter against the slate roof. Drip, drop, drip. It's the same rain that fell on Nock's mud house. It's the same rain that falls on us.
We leave the cold stone walls of the monastery behind. The rain turns to a light mist, and then the mist clears to reveal a wide, golden plain. We are in Spain, in the year 1500. The sun is high, but there's a crispness in the air. We are standing on a dusty track that stretches as far as the eye can see. This is the Cañada Real. It's a royal sheep highway, and we are walking with the Mesta. The Mesta was a powerful guild of shepherds, and twice a year they performed one of the greatest slow-motion spectacles in history, the transhumans. They are moving several million merino sheep from the high mountain pastures of the north to the warm valleys of the south. Imagine being in the middle of this. You are surrounded by a sea of gray-white wool. The sound is incredible, not loud, but constant. It's the sound of 10,000 tiny hooves hitting the dry earth. Clack, 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 clack. And the bells. Every few sheep wears a small copper bell. Thousands of them, all ringing at slightly different pitches. It creates a shimmering, metallic haze of sound that follows you for hundreds of miles. Our shepherd is named Mateo. He has a very long stick, a very loyal dog named Paleo, and a very sturdy pair of leather boots. Mateo has been walking for 3 weeks. He will walk for 3 more. He doesn't mind. The rhythm of the walk is addictive. Your brain eventually just shuts off, and you become a part of the flock. The merino sheep are the celebrities of the medieval world. Their wool is so soft and so fine that the Spanish kings actually made it illegal to export a live sheep under penalty of death. They were a national treasure. But to Mateo, they are just a collection of very loud, very dim-witted animals that are constantly trying to wander off a cliff or eat something poisonous. The social hierarchy of the sheep trail is fascinating. At the top, you have the head shepherds, who ride mules and look very serious. At the bottom, you have the apprentice boys who have to carry the salt bags. Everyone smells like sheep. Not a bad smell necessarily. It's earthy, oily, and smells like lanolin, but it's a smell that gets into your skin and stays there until you die. As the sun begins to dip, the flock slows down. They find a place to bed down in an open field. Mateo builds a small fire using dried rosemary and thyme bushes. The smoke smells incredible, like a roast dinner, even though he's only eating a piece of salt pork and a hunk of bread that's hard enough to use as a hammer. He drinks a little wine from a leather bota bag. The wine is young, sharp, and tastes slightly of the pitch used to seal the bag. He sits with the other shepherds, and they talk about the same things people always talk about: the weather, the price of wool, and how the king is probably going to raise taxes to pay for another war in Italy. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella are busy being the Catholic monarchs and finishing the Reconquista, but out here on the trail, they are just names on a coin. The Mesta has its own laws, they have their own courts, they are a kingdom on the move. The stars come out. Because there's no light pollution for 100 miles, the Milky Way looks like a thick smear of spilled milk across the sky. Paleo, the dog, curls up at Mateo's feet. The sheep are quiet now, just a vast, breathing mass of wool in the darkness. Occasionally one will bleat in its sleep, or a bell will give a lonely tink. Mateo wraps himself in his heavy wool cloak, made from the very sheep he's guarding, and looks at the fire. He thinks about the mountains he left behind, which are now covered in snow, and the green valleys ahead, where the orange trees are starting to fruit. He is a needle moving back and forth across the fabric of Spain, stitching the seasons together. It's a long, slow journey. There is no hurry. The sheep can only walk so fast. And in that realization that you cannot force the world to go faster than a sheep can walk, there is a profound sense of peace. Now, let's travel north. Far north. We are going to Iceland around the year 1000 CE. The world here is different. It's a land of sharp edges, black sand, and fire that lives under the ice. It is midwinter. The sun barely makes an appearance, peeking over the horizon for a few hours of weak gray light before retreating again. Outside, a blizzard is howling. The wind sounds like a living thing, screaming as it tears across the treeless tundra. But inside the Longhouse, it is different. The Longhouse is a masterpiece of cozy engineering. It's a long, low building with walls of thick turf and a roof of thatch. It's built to be heavy, to hunker down against the wind like a giant stone animal.
Inside, there are no rooms, just one long hall with a central fire pit running down the middle. We meet Bjorn. Bjorn is currently sitting on a wooden bench, leaning against a carved pillar. He is tired, but it's a good kind of tired. He spent the morning checking the livestock in the lean-to attached to the house. The cows and sheep live just on the other side of a wooden partition. Their body heat helps keep the house warm, and their presence is comforting, a rhythmic thumping and the occasional lowing. The smell of the longhouse is complex. It's peat smoke, dried fish, old wood, and the damp wool of clothes drying near the fire. To us, it might be overwhelming. To Bjorn, it smells like safety. Everyone is busy. In the Viking Age, winter wasn't a time for raiding. It was a time for indoor work. Bjorn's mother is at the loom. The clack, thud of the weights hitting each other is the heartbeat of the house. His father is repairing a leather harness. His younger sister is playing a game of Hannah Fatal, Viking chess, on a wooden board, using pieces carved from walrus ivory. There is a pot of stew simmering over the peat fire. It's mostly lamb and lichen. Yes, lichen. When you live in Iceland, you learn to eat anything that doesn't eat you first. It's a slow-cooked, earthy meal. Because it's so dark outside, the fire is the center of the universe. Everything happens within the circle of its light. Beyond that circle, the corners of the longhouse are lost in deep, velvety shadows.
Part 5. The Shadow on the Lacquer. Let's drift now, leaving the cold Atlantic spray behind. We are moving east, far across the Silk Roads, over the high, frozen passes of the Himalayas, and down into the humid, sprawling heart of China. We are in the Forbidden City, Beijing, around the year 1750. The sun has just dipped below the yellow-tiled roofs, leaving the sky a pale, dusty apricot. This is the realm of the Qianlong Emperor, but we aren't here to see him. He is currently surrounded by 100 people who are professionally obligated to find him fascinating. Instead, we are following a palace guard named Chen. Chen is standing at the Gate of Supreme Harmony. He has been standing here for 4 hours. He will stand here for 4 more. He is a master of the palace lean, a technique where you appear to be at attention while actually resting 90% of your weight on your left heel. The Forbidden City is a world of wood and silence. It is a city within a city, consisting of exactly 9,999.5 rooms, because only heaven can have 10,000. For Chen, it's mostly just a very large collection of things he isn't allowed to touch. The walls are stained a deep oxblood red. The floors are made of golden bricks, not actually gold, but a special clay fired for months until they ring like metal when you walk on them. Clack, clack, clack. That's the sound of a eunuch passing by, carrying a silk-wrapped tray. Everything in the palace is wrapped in silk. Everything is cushioned. Everything is indirect. If the emperor wants a glass of water, he doesn't ask for water. He hints that the air feels dry, and 5 people scramble to interpret his divine thirst. Chen watches a cricket. It's sitting on the base of a bronze lion, rubbing its wings together. Chirp, chirp. In the silence of the courtyard, it sounds like a hammer hitting an anvil. Chen envies the cricket. The cricket doesn't have to wear a heavy silk surcoat or a stiff hat with a peacock feather. The cricket can go wherever it wants. Chen, however, is part of the architecture. As night falls, the 1,000 lanterns are lit. They aren't actually 1,000, but the Chinese court loves a good round number. The lanterns are made of horn or fine silk, painted with delicate scenes of mountains and mist. They cast a soft amber glow over the marble bridges.
The shadows of the curved eaves stretch out like long, dark fingers across the courtyard. The smell here is unique. It's sandalwood incense mixed with the scent of old lacquer and the faint, sweet smell of coal fires from the kitchens. Somewhere in the distance, a flute is playing. It's a thin, lonely sound that seems to hang in the still air. Chen's mind wanders. He thinks about his village in the south. He thinks about the rice paddies, which look like broken mirrors under the moonlight. He thinks about his mother's pickled ginger. But then, a soft cough from a superior officer snaps him back. He adjusts his grip on his halberd. He is back to being a statue. Inside the inner court, the emperor is being prepared for bed. This is a process that involves about 30 people. There is a master of the bedchamber, a keeper of the imperial nightgown, and several people whose only job is to make sure the pillows are at the correct astronomical angle. The emperor is bored. Being the son of heaven is, it turns out, incredibly tedious. He spends his days signing documents with red ink and writing mediocre poetry about plum blossoms. He is currently looking at a jade carving of a cabbage. He's been looking at it for 10 minutes. He doesn't particularly like the cabbage, but it's traditional to admire it, so he does. Eventually, the lights begin to go out. One by one, the amber lanterns are extinguished. The forbidden city sinks into a deep, heavy darkness. The only sound is the rhythmic wooden clapper of the night watchman. Tap, tap, tap. It tells everyone that the world is still there, that the walls are still high, and that the emperor is safe in his mountain of silk. Chen breathes out. The air is cooling. He can smell the dampness rising from the moat. He closes his eyes for just a second, a micro-nap perfected over years of service. He feels the weight of history all around him, but to him it's just the weight of the night. We are traveling again. We are leaving the red walls of Beijing and heading west, following the long, winding thread of the Silk Road back toward the shimmering blue domes of Samarkand. The year is 1400. We are in a caravanserai. Think of it as a 14th century motel, but with more camels and better carpets. It's a massive stone square with a courtyard in the middle, built to protect merchants from the bandits and the biting desert wind. Our traveler is Omar. Omar is a merchant of lapis lazuli. He has 3 camels, and they are currently carrying several hundred pounds of deep blue stone from the mines of Badakhshan. To the world, this stone is worth a fortune. To Omar's camels, it's just a very heavy reason to be grumpy. The sun has set over the desert, and the temperature is dropping rapidly. The desert doesn't hold on to heat. It lets it go the moment the sun vanishes. Omar is sitting by a communal fire in the center of the courtyard. The sounds of the caravanserai are a thick tapestry. You have the low, guttural grumbling of the camels, a sound that sits somewhere between a groan and a burp. You have the clinking of brass tea sets. You have the murmur of a dozen different languages, Persian, Turkic, Arabic, Mandarin, all softened by the smoke of the fire. Omar is drinking tea. It's hot, sweet, and flavored with cardamom. He holds the small glass in both hands, letting the warmth seep into his calloused palms. He has been on the road for 4 months. His bones feel like they are made of the same dry wood as his camel saddles. He looks at his cargo. The lapis lazuli is wrapped in thick felt. In the firelight, he uncurls a small corner of the fabric. The stone is a breathtaking ultramarine, flecked with gold pyrite like a handful of stars captured in rock. This stone will eventually travel all the way to a monk like Coleman in Ireland, or a painter in Florence, but Omar won't be the one to take it there. He is just one link in a chain that spans the globe. The fire pops, sending a shower of sparks toward the black sky. The man sitting across from Omar is a spice merchant from the coast. He smells like cinnamon and old leather. They don't speak the same language, but they share a nod. They share the silence of the road. They are both professional sitters. Most of being a merchant isn't trading, it's waiting. Waiting for the dust storm to pass. Waiting for the gates to open. Waiting for the tea to cool. Omar lays out his bedroll. It's a thick, hand-woven rug with patterns that tell the story of a tribe he's never met. He lies down and looks up. Because the desert air is so dry and there are no cities for 1,000 miles, the stars don't just twinkle, they roar. They are huge, cold, and terrifyingly bright. He feels small, but it's a comfortable kind of smallness. He is a grain of sand in a vast desert, a single merchant on a road that has been walked for 2,000 years. The repetitive motion of the camel's gait is still in his legs, a phantom swaying that lulls him toward sleep. The camels settle down. They fold their long, spindly legs beneath them with a series of heavy thuds. They sigh. It's a deep, vibrating sound that echoes off the stone walls of the caravanserai. Omar closes his eyes. He dreams of blue stones and green oases. He dreams of the sound of water, the most precious sound in the world. Let's move forward again. The desert sands turn into the cobblestone streets of London. The year is 1720. It's a foggy, damp evening, the kind of evening where the air feels like a wet blanket, and the street lamps are just blurry smudges of yellow. We are in a small shop in Clerkenwell. This is the workshop of Mr. Finch. Mr. Finch is a clockmaker. While the rest of London is being loud and chaotic, Mr. Finch's world is governed by the infinitesimal. He is currently working on a pocket watch. He wears a jeweler's loupe over one eye, making him look like a very focused, very tired cyclops. The sound in this room is extraordinary. It's a quiet loud.
There are 40 clocks on the walls, and every single one of them is ticking. Tick-tock, tick-tock. They aren't in sync. It's a chaotic, polyrhythmic rain of sound. To a stranger, it would be maddening. To Mr. Finch, it is the sound of order. It's the heartbeat of his life. He is holding a tiny brass gear with a pair of tweezers. His hands are rock steady. He spent 40 years training them not to shake. He breathes in a specific shallow way so that his chest doesn't move and disturb the delicate springs. The workshop smells of whale oil, beeswax, and the metallic tang of brass. A small coal stove in the corner provides a dry, localized heat. Outside, he can hear the muffled sound of a carriage splashing through a puddle. He can hear the distant shout of a night watchman, past 10 o'clock and a rainy night. Mr. Finch doesn't care about the time outside. He only cares about the time inside the watch. He's working for a duke. The duke is a man of immense wealth and even more immense impatience. He wants this watch to be accurate to within a minute a month. Mr. Finch finds this hilarious. What could a duke possibly have to do that requires such accuracy? He spends most of his time waiting for his wig to be powdered. But Mr. Finch takes the work seriously. There is a profound peace in the mechanical. A gear either fits or it doesn't. A spring is either tensioned or it isn't. There is no ambiguity in a clock. He places the gear. He releases the tension. The watch begins to beat. Tink, 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 tink. It's a faster, higher sound than the wall clocks. It's the sound of a tiny mechanical heart coming to life. Mr. Finch sighs. He takes off his loupe and rubs the bridge of his nose. His eyes are watery. He looks around his shop. The pendulum of a grandfather clock swings back and forth. Shh, shh, cutting the night into manageable slices. He decides it's time to close. He doesn't have a long walk home. He lives in the room above the shop. He winds the main clocks, one by one. The sound of the winding key, ack, ack, is a satisfying structural sound. He blows out the oil lamp. The ticking continues in the dark. It's a reminder that even when we stop, time does not. It marches on, indifferent to dukes and clockmakers alike. Mr. Finch climbs the narrow, creaking stairs. He lies down in his bed, and the 40 heartbeats of his clocks follow him into his dreams, keeping time with his own pulse. Our final stop for tonight is perhaps the quietest of all. We are in the basement of a great library in Paris, around 1890. The air is still. It's the kind of stillness that feels heavy, like it's been sitting in this room since the Revolution. The walls are lined with floor-to-ceiling shelves, and those shelves are packed with books that haven't been opened in a century. Our guide is Jean-Luc. Jean-Luc is an archivist. His job is to categorize the uncategorizable. He is currently sitting at a large oak table, illuminated by a green-shaded desk lamp. The only sound is the occasional rustle of paper, but not modern paper. This is old paper, thick, rag-based, and brittle at the edges. When Jean-Luc turns a page, it sounds like a dry leaf skittering across a sidewalk. The smell is intoxicating for a certain kind of person. It's the smell of vanilla and old leather. It's the smell of lignin breaking down over decades. It's the smell of forgotten thoughts. Jean-Luc is currently cataloging a series of letters from a minor nobleman in the 1760s. The nobleman spent most of his life writing to his cousin about his gout and his failed attempts to grow lemons in Normandy. It is by all historical standards completely useless information, and that's why Jean-Luc loves it. The big history is upstairs. The kings, the treaties, the guillotines, that's all on the first floor. Down here, it's the small history. It's the receipts for laundry. It's the nervous love letters. It's the diary of a man who was very, very worried about his lemons. Jean-Luc feels like a ghost hunter. He is the only person in the world who knew these people existed. He feels a quiet responsibility to them.
Let's travel now to the winter of 1853. We are in the Tuileries Palace in Paris, but we aren't at a ball. We aren't under the dazzling chandeliers of the Great Hall. We are in the private dressing rooms of Empress Eugenie late at night. The palace is massive, drafty, and slightly ridiculous, but in this room it is quiet. The fire in the hearth is burning low, casting a soft orange glow over a sea of white silk. We follow the gaze of a woman named Marie. Marie is a seamstress, and she is currently engaged in the most delicate task in France. She is repairing a snag in a piece of Alençon lace. The sound here is almost non-existent. It's the microscopic snip of tiny silver scissors and the sound of Marie's own steady breathing. This lace is so fine it's known as the Queen of Laces. It is made by hand, one stitch at a time, using needles so thin they look like eyelashes. It took someone in a village months to make this single flounce, and it took the Empress 10 seconds to catch it on a diamond brooch. Marie works by the light of a specialized lace-maker's lamp, a glass globe filled with water that focuses the candlelight into a single intense beam. It makes the rest of the room feel like it's underwater. The Empress is already asleep in the next room, behind heavy velvet curtains. She is dreaming of politics and perfumes, but Marie is thinking about the thread. If the thread is too dry, it snaps. If her hands are too warm, they sweat and ruin the silk.
so she keeps a bowl of cool water nearby, dipping her fingers in occasionally. Drip, splash, the water is cold and clear. Naturally, the court is obsessed with appearances. Tomorrow, the empress must look effortless. Effort in the 19th century was considered vulgar. To be a royal was to appear as though you simply materialized in a cloud of perfect lace and impeccable manners, ignoring the fact that 20 women had been sewing since dawn to make it happen. Marie finishes the stitch. She knots the thread so tightly and so small that it becomes invisible to the naked eye. She smooths the fabric with a cold iron. It feels like a spider's web. The palace outside is a labyrinth of sleeping servants and bored guards. The wind whistles through the ill-fitting window frames of the Tuileries. It's a lonely, high-pitched sound. But here, amidst the silk and the pins, there is a sense of tiny, perfect completion. Marie puts her needle away. She closes the velvet-lined box. Her work will be worn for 4 hours, and then put in a setter chest for 100 years. She doesn't mind. She likes the silence of the stitch. She likes that she is the only one who knows where the flaw was and how it was fixed. We move now to a cold stone tower in Prague, 1605. We are high above the city, away from the smell of the tanneries and the noise of the taverns. We are in the study of Johannes Kepler. Kepler is a man who is trying to find the music of the spheres, but right now he is mostly trying to find his glasses. The room is a mess of geometry. There are brass astrolabes that catch the moonlight, wooden models of the planets, and stacks of parchment covered in thousands of tiny, cramped numbers. Kepler is calculating the orbit of Mars. He has been doing this for years. Mars, as it turns out, is being very difficult. It won't move in a perfect circle, and this is deeply annoying to a man who believes the universe is a beautiful geometric masterpiece. The sound in the tower is the sound of the wind moving through the eaves and the occasional scratch of Kepler's quill. He is dipping it into a heavy crystal inkwell. The ink is thick and smells of soot and vinegar. Kepler is tired. His eyes are failing him from staring at the stars and the numbers. He leans back in his heavy oak chair, which groans under his weight. He looks out the window at the sky over Prague. The stars look like salt spilled on a black tablecloth. He thinks about his employer, Emperor Rudolph II. Rudolph is currently in the palace below, surrounded by alchemists who are promising to turn lead into gold and magicians who claim to have the bones of a giant. Rudolph is a bit of a disaster, honestly. He's obsessed with the occult and terrified of his own shadow. He hasn't paid Kepler's salary in 6 months. Kepler sighs. He isn't interested in gold. He's interested in why the planets move the way they do. He is looking for a pattern, a rhythm, a cosmic heartbeat. He writes down a final row of figures. He's realized something. The orbit isn't a circle. It's an ellipse, an oval. It's imperfect, and yet it's more perfect than he imagined. The realization doesn't come with a shout. It comes with a long, slow exhale. He sets the quill down. He doesn't blot the ink. He lets it dry naturally, watching the wet sheen slowly turn matte. The city of Prague is asleep below him. The Vltava River flows under the Charles Bridge, dark and silent. Kepler closes his eyes. He feels the rotation of the Earth, not as a physical sensation, but as a mathematical certainty. He is a small man in a small tower on a small planet, but for a moment, he understands the clockwork of the heavens. He blows out his lamp. The smell of the burning wick, acrid and oily, lingers in the cold air. He goes to sleep, and in his dreams, the planets move in silent, perfect ovals, dancing to a music that only he can hear. Let's drift to a place of ultimate stillness. We are in Kyoto, Japan, 16th century. It is early morning, before the sun has fully risen. The world is a study in shades of gray and deep indigo. We are in a tea garden. It is a small space, enclosed by a bamboo fence. There are no bright flowers here. There are only mossy stones, raked gravel, and the dark green of pine needles. Our host is Riku. He is a tea master. He is currently walking across the garden to fetch water from the stone basin. His movements are slow and deliberate. Every step is a meditation. He isn't walking to the water. He is experiencing the act of walking. The sound is the white noise of nature. The wind in the bamboo makes a dry, rattling sound. Shh, clack, shh, clack. A single drop of water falls from a bamboo pipe into a stone bowl. Plop. The silence between the drops is just as important as the sound itself. Riku enters the tea house. It is a tiny building made of wood, paper, and straw. It smells of fresh tatami mats, that sweet, grassy scent that reminds you of summer fields. He begins to build a small charcoal fire to boil the water. The ritual of the tea is a symphony of small sounds. The clink of the ceramic bowl, the swish of the bamboo whisk, the hiss of the water as it nears the boiling point, a sound the Japanese call the wind in the pines. There is no rush here. In the world outside, there are samurai and shoguns and wars for territory, but inside the tea house, the only thing that matters is the temperature of the water and the way the green tea powder dissolves into a froth. Riku sits in the middle of the room. He is waiting for his guest. The guest will have to crawl through a small, low door, a nijiriguchi, which forces everyone, no matter how high their rank, to bow and enter as an equal. The tea master looks at a single branch of plum blossom in a vase. It is slightly crooked. He finds it perfect because it is crooked. The sun begins to hit the screens, turning them into glowing rectangular lanterns. The garden outside is waking up, but the tea house remains a sanctuary of shadow and steam. Riku takes a sip of the tea.
It is bitter, hot, and thin. It tastes like the earth. He feels the warmth travel down his throat. He feels his heartbeat slow down to match the rhythm of the dripping water outside. He is content. He has everything he needs in this 4.5-mat room. The world can wait. The centuries can pass. The tea is ready. And finally, we return to the sea. We are on a British Royal Navy ship, the HMS Indefatigable, in the year 1995. We are in the middle of the Atlantic. It is the middle watch, between midnight and 4 in the morning. This is the quietest time on a ship. The great sails are set, and they hum in the wind, a low, vibrating bass note that you feel in your teeth. Our sailor is Tom. Tom is 18. He is currently stationed at the bow of the ship, looking out into the black wall of the ocean. He can't see anything. There are no lights at sea. There is only the white foam of the bow wave, glowing faintly with bioluminescence, like ghostly sparks in the water. The sound of the ship is a living thing. The wooden hull creaks. Ack. Ack. The hemp ropes groan under the tension. The water rushes past the sides with a constant shh. Tom is leaning against the rail. He is wrapped in a heavy, salt-crusted pea coat. He smells of tar, tobacco, and the cold, sharp spray of the ocean. He is tired, but it's a strange, floating kind of tiredness. He feels like he's the only person awake in the world. Below him, in the cramped, humid darkness of the lower decks, 600 men are sleeping in hammocks. They are packed together like sardines, swaying in unison as the ship rolls. The sound of 600 men breathing and snoring is like a muffled engine. But up here, there is space. There is the wind. There are the stars, which seem to dip and dive as the ship climbs the swells. Tom looks up at the Great Bear. He thinks about home, a small cottage in Devon where the ground doesn't move. He thinks about the smell of hay and the sound of a cowbell. But then the ship takes a deep plunge in the trough, and a spray of cold seawater hits him in the face. He wipes his eyes. He isn't angry. He's just part of the machine. He is a small man in a small tower on a small planet, but for a moment, he understands the clockwork of the heavens. He blows out his lamp. The smell of the burning wick, acrid and oily, lingers in the cold air. He goes to sleep, and in his dreams, the planets move in silent, perfect ovals, dancing to a music that only he can hear. Let's drift to a place of ultimate stillness. We are in Kyoto, Japan, 16th century. It is early morning, before the sun has fully risen. The world is a study in shades of gray and deep indigo. We are in a tea garden. It is a small space, enclosed by a bamboo fence. There are no bright flowers here. There are only mossy stones, raked gravel, and the dark green of pine needles. Our host is Riku. He is a tea master. He is currently walking across the garden to fetch water from the stone basin. His movements are slow and deliberate. Every step is a meditation. He isn't walking to the water. He is experiencing the act of walking. The sound is the white noise of nature. The wind in the bamboo makes a dry, rattling sound. Shh, clack, shh, clack. A single drop of water falls from a bamboo pipe into a stone bowl. The silence between the drops is just as important as the sound itself. Riku enters the tea house. It is a tiny building made of wood, paper, and straw. It smells of fresh tatami mats, that sweet, grassy scent that reminds you of summer fields. He begins to build a small charcoal fire to boil the water. The ritual of the tea is a symphony of small sounds: the clink of the ceramic bowl, the swish of the bamboo whisk, the hiss of the water as it nears the boiling point, a sound the Japanese call the wind in the pines. There is no rush here. In the world outside there are samurai and shoguns and wars for territory, but inside the tea house, the only thing that matters is the temperature of the water and the way the green tea powder dissolves into a froth. Riku sits in the middle of the room. He is waiting for his guest. The guest will have to crawl through a small, low door, a nijiriguchi, which forces everyone, no matter how high their rank, to bow and enter as an equal. The tea master looks at a single branch of plum blossom in a vase. It is slightly crooked. He finds it perfect because it is crooked. The sun begins to hit the paper screens, turning them into glowing rectangular lanterns. The garden outside is waking up, but the tea house remains a sanctuary of shadow and steam. Riku takes a sip of the tea. It is bitter, hot, and thin. It tastes like the earth. He feels the warmth travel down his throat. He feels his heartbeat slow down to match the rhythm of the dripping water outside. He is content. He has everything he needs in this 4.5-mat room. The world can wait. The centuries can pass. The tea is ready. And finally, we return to the sea. We are on a British Royal Navy ship, the HMS Indefatigable, in the year 1995. We are in the middle of the Atlantic. It is the middle watch, between midnight and 4 in the morning. This is the quietest time on a ship. The great sails are set, and they hum in the wind, a low, vibrating bass note that you feel in your teeth. Our sailor is Tom. Tom is 18. He is currently stationed at the bow of the ship, looking out into the bow of the ocean. He can't see anything. There are
Let's move away from the spray of the Atlantic and back toward the manicured stillness of land. We are in the Palace of Versailles, around the year 1700. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. We are in the Hall of Mirrors. Usually, this room is a cacophony of clicking heels, whispering courtiers, and the rustle of silk that sounds like 1,000 snakes. But now, it is silent. The mirrors, which cost more than a small city, reflect nothing but the pale, ghostly moonlight coming through the massive windows. We are following Pierre. Pierre is a floor polisher. Pierre's entire world consists of wood.
specifically the intricate parquet floors of the king's apartments. He is currently on his knees with two heavy wax-soaked cloths. His movements are rhythmic and circular. Swish, swish, swish. The smell is overwhelming, a thick, sweet, medicinal scent of beeswax and turpentine. Naturally, King Louis XIV, the Sun King, is currently asleep in his bedchamber behind several sets of locked doors. He is dreaming of being Apollo. Pierre, however, is mostly dreaming of a chair. The palace at night is a strange beast. Because it was built on a swamp, the wood is constantly shifting. It groans, it pops. Sometimes it sounds like a footstep, but it's just the ghost of an oak tree settling into its golden cage. Pierre doesn't look up. He knows every knot in the wood. He knows the exact spot where the Duke of Orleans spilled a glass of Burgundy wine 3 weeks ago, leaving a faint, stubborn stain that only Pierre can see. The scale of Versailles is meant to make you feel small, and for Pierre, it works. He is a speck of dust in a palace of mirrors. He watches his own reflection as he moves, a dark shadow sliding across the silvered glass. In the morning, the king will wake up. The levee will begin. 100 men will watch the king put on his stockings as if it were a religious miracle. They will walk across these floors, their red-heeled shoes clicking and scratching at Pierre's handiwork. Pierre doesn't mind. He knows that in the dark, the floors belong to him. He moves to the next panel. Swish, swish. The wax creates a deep, liquid shine. It looks like a dark pool of water. The silence is heavy, broken only by the distant, muffled cough of a Swiss guard standing at the end of the gallery. Pierre feels the cold of the marble walls. He feels the ache in his shoulders, but there is a satisfaction in the friction, in the way the dull wood slowly becomes a mirror. He is the man who makes the Sun King shine, one circular motion at a time. Part 14. The Winter of the Hermit. Let's leave the gilded trap of Versailles and head into the high, thin air of the Alps. We are in the small stone cell, carved directly into a cliffside. The year is 1350. Our host is Brother Julian. Julian is a hermit. He has lived in his cell for 12 years. He hasn't spoken a word to another human being in 3 of them. It is winter. A thick blanket of snow has muffled the world. The only sound is the occasional crump of a snow-laden pine branch breaking in the valley far below. Inside the cell, the air is still and smells of dry earth and old wool. Julian is sitting on a stone bench. He is knitting. This is his small work. He uses simple wooden needles to turn raw, greasy sheep's wool into thick socks. Click, click, click. The sound is tiny, but in the absolute silence of the mountain, it feels as loud as a heartbeat. He is not lonely. For Julian, the silence isn't an absence. It's a presence. It's like a warm cloak. He spends his days watching the light move across the wall. In the morning, it's a sharp, blue-white sliver. By afternoon, it's a soft, dusty gold. Occasionally, a villager from below will climb the path to leave a basket of bread and dried apples at the entrance of his cave. They think Julian is a holy man, a conduit to the divine. Julian thinks he's just a man who realized that talking is mostly just a way of making the world more complicated than it needs to be. He looks out his small, unglazed window. The mountains are jagged teeth against a purple sky. He watches a hawk circling. It's a slow, effortless spiral. The hawk doesn't have a schedule. Neither does Julian. He doesn't have a clock. He doesn't have a calendar. He measures time by the growth of his beard and the changing temperature of the stone floor. He is a part of the mountain now. He is as still as the granite. He puts his knitting down. He eats a slice of apple. It's tough and leathery, but the sweetness is intense, a small fire on his tongue. He closes his eyes and listens to the silence. It's a deep, ringing sound. It's the sound of the world breathing when no one is watching. Julian lies down on his bed of straw. He pulls his wool blanket over his head. The snow continues to fall, burying the path, burying the world, leaving Julian alone in his high, quiet kingdom of stone. Part 15. The Scent of the Orangery. We move now to the edge of a great estate in England, the summer of 1780. The sun has been down for hours, but the earth is still radiating the day's heat. We are in the orangery of a grand country house. This is a building of glass and brick, designed to keep citrus trees alive in a climate that would otherwise kill them. It is a humid, tropical bubble in the middle of a damp English night. Our companion is Thomas, the undergardener. Thomas is currently taking the air. In reality, he's making sure the vents are open just enough to let the night breeze in without chilling the trees. The smell is incredible. It's the scent of orange blossoms, a thick, waxy citrus perfume that sits heavy in the lungs. It's mixed with the smell of damp potting soil and the iron tang of the watering cans. Thomas walks slowly between the massive terracotta pots. The trees are twisted, dark shapes in the moonlight. Their leaves are glossy and look like they've been cut from dark green silk.
Outside the estate is a masterpiece of natural landscaping. Of course it's not natural at all. 1,000 men spent 5 years moving a hill 300 yards to the left so that the Earl could have a better view of the lake. The lake itself is man-made, and the ruined Roman temple on the hill was built last Tuesday. But in the orangery, things are real. The trees are alive. They need water. They need the right soil. They don't care about the Earl's views or the price of tea. Thomas stops to touch a ripening orange. It's cool and pebbled. He thinks about the fact that this fruit started its journey in a place called Seville. He's never been further than the next county, but he holds a piece of Spain in his hand. The sound here is the hush of the trees. The leaves rub against each other in the draft. Shh, rustle. A moth flutters against the glass, its wings making a soft, frantic tapping. Thomas sits on a wooden crate. He listens to the owls in the woods. It's a mournful, hollow sound that defines the English night. He feels the peace of the plants. They aren't in a hurry to grow. They just exist. He closes his eyes, breathing in the orange blossom. He feels the humidity on his skin. He is a small part of a very large, very slow clockwork. The seasons turn, the trees grow, and Thomas is there to watch them. Part 16. The Final Ember. And so we come to the end of our journey. We have seen the silt of the Nile and the mirrors of Versailles. We have walked with shepherds and sat with hermits. We have heard the ticking of 100 clocks and the silence of a mountain cell. All these people, these moments, these quiet rhythms, they are all still there, layered like the vellum in Colmantuc. They are the background noise of the human story. The world is a very busy place during the day. It's full of noise and light and people trying to be important. But at night, the world returns to what it has always been, a place of shadows, a place of slow breaths, a place where the only thing that matters is the warmth of the fire and the softness of the bed. The history books focus on the loud parts, but you are in the quiet parts now. You are Noct, watching the river. You are Coleman, blowing out the candle. You are the shepherd, listening to the bells. You are the monk, knitting in the dark. The story is over. The pages are closed. The ink is dry. The room you are in is safe. The air is cool. The blankets are heavy. There is nothing left to think about. There is nothing left to do. Let your mind drift like the silt in the Nile. Let it settle. Let it be still. Good night. Sleep well.
We shift our gaze now to a small cottage in the Cotswolds, England, around the year 1640. The sun has long since retired, leaving the rolling hills outside looking like a crumpled velvet blanket under the moon. Inside the cottage, the only light comes from the weaver's lamp, a glass flask filled with water positioned in front of a single candle to magnify the light onto the loom. We meet Elspeth. Elspeth is a weaver, and she is currently finishing a length of broadcloth. The sound of the loom is the rhythm of her life. Thwack, clatter, thwack, clatter. The heavy wooden beam swings forward, beating the weft into the warp. Then the shuttle slides across with a dry wooden hiss. It is a heavy, industrial lullaby. To anyone else, it's a noise. To Elspeth, it's the sound of bread on the table. The room smells of raw wool, that heavy lanolin scent that sticks to everything, and the faint, sharp smell of the vegetable dyes she used earlier in the week. Madder root for red, woad for blue. Naturally, the world outside is starting to tear itself apart. King Charles I and his parliament are currently arguing about who gets to run the country, and soon men will be marching through these hills with pikes and muskets. But in this room, the only conflict is a tangled thread. Elspeth doesn't care about the divine right of kings. She cares about the tension of the yarn. She stops for a moment to rub her eyes. The magnified light from the glass flask makes the dust motes look like tiny, glowing stars. She reaches for a mug of small beer, weak, cool, and tasting faintly of yeast. The cottage is a series of soft, organic sounds. The thatch roof overhead breathes. When the wind catches it, it sounds like a giant animal ruffling its fur. The floor is made of packed earth and rushes, which muffle her footsteps. Elspeth works for another hour, her hands moving by muscle memory. She is a human machine, turning the hair of a sheep into the armor of a commoner. When she finally finishes the row, she sighs. It's a quiet, satisfied sound. She unhooks the weights. The tension goes out of the room. She blows out the candle. The magnifying flask remains, now just a dark, watery eye in the shadows. Elspeth climbs the ladder to the loft, the wood smooth and cool under her bare feet. She lies down on a mattress stuffed with dried bracken, and the rhythm of the loom continues to beat in her mind until it fades into the rhythm of her own breath. Part 18. The Scent of the Spice Shop. Let's travel to Venice, the year 1520. We are in a narrow alleyway, just a few steps away from the Grand Canal. The water of the canal is black and still, lapping against the green slime of the marble stairs. Slap, gurgle, slap. We are inside the shop of Messer Niccolo, a spice merchant. The shop is closed for the night, but the air inside is so thick with scent, you could almost chew it. This isn't the smell of a kitchen, it's the smell of the entire world squeezed into a single room. It's the sharp, medicinal bite of cloves from the Moluccas. It's the dusty, sun-baked warmth of cinnamon from Ceylon. It's the heavy, earthy sweetness of nutmeg and the stinging heat of black pepper. Niccolo is sitting at his counting desk. He isn't counting money tonight. He's counting his lucky stars that his latest galley made it past the pirates in the Adriatic. He is holding a single pod of cardamom. He rolls it between his thumb and forefinger. Venice at night is a city of echoes. You can hear a boatman's song 3 canals away. You can hear the distant chime of the bells from St. Mark's Basilica. Low, bronze notes that vibrate through the water. But Niccolo's shop is a fortress of fragrance. He looks at his jars. They are made of Murano glass and blue and white maiolica. They hold black gold. People in London and Paris will pay a king's ransom for a handful of what he has in these drawers, just so their meat doesn't taste like the Middle Ages. Niccolo is tired of the smell. To him, the scent of paradise is just a reminder of taxes, shipping manifests, and the constant fear of fire. He longs for the smell of a simple pine forest or the clean, salty air of the open sea. He closes his ledger. The ink is a deep, dark purple. He stands up, his joints popping in the silence. He walks to the back of the shop, where he lives. As he climbs the stairs, he leaves the world of spices behind, but the scent follows him, clinging to his hair and his robes. Even in his sleep, he will dream of spice islands and the long, slow creak of a ship's hull. Part 19. The Lantern in the Snow. We return once more to the north, but this time to a village in Russia, 1812. It is midwinter, and the cold is not just a temperature, it is a physical weight. It is the general winter. We are in a small wooden house, an izba. The walls are made of massive pine logs, the cracks stuffed with dried moss. In the center of the room is the patch, a giant masonry stove that takes up a quarter of the living space. Our focus is on old Matei. Matei is currently sleeping on top of the stove. This was the warmest place in the house. The bricks of the stove hold the heat from the day's fire, radiating a deep, bone-deep warmth that seeped into Matei's aching back. The sound of the house is the sound of the cold trying to get in. The logs groan as they contract in the frost. Crack. It sounds like a pistol shot. Outside, the wind is a low, mournful howl, driving the snow into drifts that cover the windows. Matei is half awake. He listens to the rhythmic breathing of his family, his son, his daughter-in-law, the children, all huddled together on the benches around the stove. He listens to the cow in the lean-to, her heavy shifts against the wall a comforting thud. He thinks about the French army, somewhere out there in the white void, freezing in their thin silk uniforms. He doesn't feel malice, only a quiet pity. To fight a Russian winter is to fight the moon. You cannot win. He reaches out a hand to touch the warm bricks. They feel solid, reliable. He smells the faint scent of rye bread and the smoke from the birch logs. He hears the cricket of the hearth, a tiny, persistent chirp that survives even in the deepest freeze. Matei pulls his sheepskin coat tighter. He is a small, warm seed buried under the snow. He knows the sun won't be back for a long time, and he doesn't mind. He has the stove. He has the moss-stuffed walls. He has the rhythm of the winter. He drifts back into a sleep that is as deep and white as the world outside. Part 20. The Last Candle. The journey is ending. The circle is complete. The weaver's loom has stopped its thwacking. The spice merchant has forgotten his ledgers. The old man on the stove is warm. The history of the world is not a list of dates. It is a collection of these quiet nights. It is the sound of a quill, the smell of a candle, the weight of a blanket. You are now at the very end of the line. The 1.5 hours of history have passed like a slow-moving river. The people we have met are all gone, but their stillness remains. It has been handed down to you, like a gift. The light in your room is perfect. The silence is yours. The ghosts of the past are not here to haunt you. They are here to show you how to rest. They survived their winters, their taxes, their long walks, and their tedious kings. And then, they slept. Now, it is your turn. Don't think about tomorrow. Tomorrow is just another great event that hasn't happened yet. Tonight is the boring history. Tonight is the silt, the vellum, the wool, and the dark. Close your eyes. Release the tension in your shoulders. Let your breath be as slow as a Spanish shepherd's walk. Let your mind be as quiet as a monk's cell. The world is turning. The stars are in their ellipses. Everything is exactly where it should be. Good night. Good night. Good night.